Hello, my name is Terrence. I'm from Gaming Club, and you're watching Patiño News.
You're watching Patiño News, a 3-time Slick Rock nominated news show.
So last week, the BSU invited Dr. Terrence Roberts, and he was an original member of the Little Rock Nine. He answered some of the questions for our sophomores and freshmen, and here are some of the highlights.
Good afternoon, or good morning, your time. It's my pleasure to be here with you today. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened in Little Rock about 66 years ago, and then we're going to try and connect the dots to what happened in Little Rock to what's happening in your life as you're living it in this year, 2024. We show up on day one to try to get into school. The governor had called out the National Guard the night before, ostensibly to keep the peace, but in actuality, to keep us out. So we were not allowed to enter the school. We made attempts to go through the line, but the soldiers blocked us at every turn. The next time we were able to get into school was 3 weeks later. 3 weeks, without benefit of assignments or homework or anything. We just had to wait to see what would happen. And what did happen was that President Eisenhower at the time dismissed the National Guard from around the school, turned them into federal soldiers, and ordered them off the premises. In their place, he brought in the 101st Airborne Division, a group of battle-hardened soldiers, many of whom had fought in the Second World War. Well, they became our escorts to school. They picked us up in the morning, and we rode in a caravan in Army jeeps with machine guns and armed soldiers of all kinds around us. We made our way up to campus surrounded by troops, 2 of whom would follow each of us through our classes. Now, they couldn't enter the classrooms, but they stood guard outside the door, and we walked from one class to another with guards every day, that entire school year. We walked onto campus, and the shouting and the yelling continued throughout the year. And the message was always the same. Either you leave voluntarily, or we will kill you and drag you out of here. So each of the 9 of us had to contend with that thought every single day.
We have a question from Logan, and he asked, what did it feel like to be followed around by guards?
Well, I prefer not to answer a question that involves feelings, because feelings are very ethereal. They come, they go, they have very little meaning over time. Perhaps I could rephrase the question, what did I think about having the guards there? Now we're operating in the cerebrum. We're thinking, we're looking at things realistically and rationally. What I thought was, it's important and imperative that the guards are here, because without them, we no doubt would have been killed. That was an essential thing. I think, on the other hand, that it could have been different had we had other ways of setting this thing up so that the opposition would have been contained even before we got to school, and we would never have to deal with it.
Another question we got was, what made you keep on going while attending high school?
I think what kept me really going ahead was my knowledge and my own study of the American past. As I looked back and saw the kinds of life conditions that confronted people like me over the hundreds of years that they had to endure it during the period of enslavement in this country. And that's something else that I would actually invite you to consider reading, is about that historical record that shows exactly what happened to allow the enslavement of so many millions of people over hundreds of years. That knowledge gave me the impetus to keep moving forward, because without them going through that stuff, I would not have been able to confront what I did. That makes so much sense to me. And I say that in the terms that as humans in any given era, we are setting the foundation for people who come after us.
All right, thank you. We have another question. This one's from Carla. It says, looking back now, is there anything you would have changed from your experience? If so, what and why?
Yes, great question. I've thought about that often. And it's true, when you go through an experience, and if you are willing to take a look at it objectively, and then assess it in terms of what might have been different and might have been better, One of the things that I would have demanded in that school during that entire school year, that at the end of every school day, we would have a chance, the 9 of us would have a chance to sit down with all the kids who had been beating us up that day, and we'd have a dialogue about it. We'd sit around a table, and we wouldn't throw things or throw fists or bats or whatever, and fight, but we would sit down and reason together. We would share our thoughts. We would say, I hit you because, and whatever they would say, we would process it and talk about it. Now, hopefully, dialogue is important. And hopefully we would have a dialogue that would finally lead us to some way of figuring out how to resolve these issues without violence.
From that experience, do you have any positive memories that you could share?
Oh, yes. I have a lot of positive memories. I think the one memory that stands out is that there were very few kids, white kids at that school, who thought differently than the majority. There weren't a lot because the message was out on campus. If you as a white student befriend any of the black students, we will kill you too. So for many people, that was too much of a threat. And so they refused to even reach out in any friendly way. But there were a couple, particularly, who did. Now that's a very positive thing. And I admired their courage because it was a courageous act on their part to defy the will of the mob. And that's another thing, you could extrapolate from that at this school where you are. If you ever feel pressured by the whole group to do something that you think is idiotic, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. Now, they might label you an idiot for not following them, but that's fine, because it has nothing to do with you. You know you're not an idiot. In fact, the tables are probably turned, but you don't even have to say it. Their actions will prove who they are.
All right, that concludes our session, and we thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Well, my pleasure. My pleasure. I think there's one last thing I'll say as we prepare to leave, and that is this. I think it's imperative that we really take to heart the notion that we are unique, special individuals in the universe. No one is like you. You are special and unique. Be that person. Don't be the person that other people think you ought to be. Go forth and do well. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
You today on behalf of Patiño News Network. Please feel free to introduce yourself, who you are, who you're here representing, and please talk to us a little bit about this grant that has been given to you by the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation.
My name is Ras Lopez. I'm the CEO of Leyes Unidas, and what Leyes Unidas is we're a financial literacy education company.
That you and your organization have just received a grant from a local foundation here in Fresno, California, called Confia. Would you like to talk to us a little bit about Confia, talk to us a little bit about Ras Unidas, which I understand is your business.
We're a company dedicated towards educating the Hispanic and Latino community on financial education.
How did Ras Unidas learn about the opportunity to apply for this grant offered again by Hispanic area?
All right, welcome Patiño, this is Mr. Began. So what you see behind me are all the 9th grade teams. They are currently meeting with some of our project stakeholders. So we have brought in industry partners here from Fresno and around the valley. They are meeting with them today to talk about the prototype that they are building for our capstone project in project management. So the theme of our project is solving extreme heat with certain stakeholders. So they're going to be meeting with folks from construction, from folks from Poverello House, folks who work with wheelchair disabilities. So we have a variety of different folks that are here today to give them feedback on what the idea is that they have and how these students can basically revise what they're currently doing. Personally, this is my favorite part of the project because it becomes a lot more real when you bring in industry partners into our learning environment. So check out some of the meetings and what they look like.
Did you come up with an idea of what your cost would be?
Get to that part just yet because we're still in the part of prototyping it, and we still haven't prototyped it. We're just coming, like we're just researching everything for right now before we like get to the cost of how we should do it.
It's not going to explode. It's not going to break. Nothing. It is only meant to explode, combust, when it gets extreme temperature.
And basically our overall goal is to ensure that parents' lives are easier and set, because with kids, life is usually hectic and crazy and all over the place. And another goal is to make sure that kids are, safe and, and it's just to make sure everything's going great. Okay. And yeah, that's our product.
We figured if we were able to keep this powered by solar, then it would be easier on you so that you don't have to keep going back and refilling or recharging something. So it'd just be easier on you in general.
You have power, you have a fan, and you have a Mr. Head.
And another benefit of our product is that we, as a group, decided to make it sugar-free because the Latin American community is suffering from a huge diabetes epidemic because the immense amount of sugars in most products.
Then you want to go ahead and Google your competitors. Who are you competing against? Google Camelback. Figure out how you can take their product and improve upon it with your product. Okay? So Google's going to be your friend on this.
All right. In your prototype, you can have a little box this big being your fan, but maybe that's not available. Okay, so you need to look at devices that have fans already that are real small. I want you to look out the window. See that right there? In that middle window? That's what's called a roof mount dual pack. And that's an HVAC unit that has both heating and cooling in it.
Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and catch us next week.